Welcome to Master the Process, where we break down recruiting, NIL, and the road to scholarships so families can build a real plan instead of guessing. Hi, I'm Coach Braxton Arthur, former Division I athlete and 11-year recruiting coordinator, and the owner of NIL Sense, a college planning program for athletes and their families. I'm glad you're here, so let's get started. All right, guys, welcome back to Master the Process. Today I have a special guest and friend of mine who is here to talk to us about our topic of recruiting. Our guest is Coach Jaye Nayreau. He's the head coach at the University of Science and Arts at Oklahoma at NAIA school. So he has done it at every single level, guys. I just love talking to Coach Nayreau. So he's been at Division I, he's been JUCO, and now he's NAIA. He's now currently the head women's basketball coach, and he's already making a major impact in his second year at Science and the Arts. So, Coach, thank you so much for being here.
Without a doubt, Coach Braxton, how I met you is how I see you, and forever and always you will be a coach, even if you put the title down. So,
Yes.
definitely a pleasure.
Yes, I'm just excited that you took time. I know your schedule is very busy, especially now being the heart of recruiting for you as a women's basketball coach. But can you take a moment and tell our audience a little bit about your background? I know it, but tell them about your background, your Division I, your junior college, and now NAIA, and what you've done for athletes to support them in the recruiting process.
To begin with, my background is one that's not typical of most coaches at Division I, Division II, or NAIA level. Along the way, as many coaches, you have to have a little bit of luck, and I had a lot of luck in how I entered the business. I entered the business with a pocket full of hope and was given an opportunity at St. Louis University to be their student manager, graduate student manager at the point in time, and it opened the door for me. So with the hope, I had to. Now I tell my players, fortunately and unfortunately, to get there is hard. To stay there is harder. To leave your mark is the hardest. And so, someone giving you an opportunity is just the beginning, right? And so it's what you do with your opportunity. So from St. Louis University, after a year there, I was able to carry it on over to becoming an assistant coach full time at Dodge City Community College. After 2 years there, moved on to Stephen F. Austin State, where we met and I learned so much more. And that was my, I guess my coming of age, where it had to the process was sped up, because at that point in time, little Aaron was being born, and you had to teach me as quick, fast as possible.
Yes, I had to throw you in the fire.
To take on the position of recruiting coordination. And so, something I learned from that time period is just, it was stressful, definitely anxiety inducing, but you get past it. And what I'd learned from it was never ever curse the pain that strengthens you. It was information that I needed. It was an experience that was necessary. And so it definitely helped me to grow and develop underneath, intense circumstances, because of the history and the tradition of Stephen F. Austin State women's basketball. And so from there, was able to move on to Southern Mississippi and Louisiana Lafayette, and then Texas Southern. Sidestepped my college career to coach high school basketball for 2 years. I did boys basketball at Osborne High School in Manassas, Virginia. From there, made it back to Texas. Ended up at Trinity Valley Community College, historically the #1 junior college for women's basketball in the country. And then that experience led to my last stop before this one, which was Tennessee State University, where I was there from 2020 to 2024. And then after 2024, unfortunately, we weren't able to stay there at Tennessee State. And after 18 years of being an assistant in what I considered the long way home, the long, arduous journey, was given an opportunity here at the University of Science and Arts of Oklahoma. Did not know much
Yes.
about NAIA basketball, but figured I got into the business not knowing much, but along the way was able to pick some things up, learn, and not be afraid of the unknown. And so stepped into that doorway for what I see as a compelling journey continued. And by the athletic director and the committee here was given an opportunity. And I can say it's been rather fruitful. So that the compilation of experience as a whole has been one of hope and then one of an investment. And, so the hope that I started off with and the investment within the profession. Nobody was going to allow me to stay in the profession without being of service to the profession. And so there was a lot of learning and teaching myself to learn and adaptation and adjustment. And so, most people do not have that long of a resume, but we're all, I say, individuals, and every path is different. And we each walk the path that we've chosen. Mine is not one that has the background of, a player collegiately or heralded, NBA or NBA brand name. And so, with what I had to do, you know, the most with. And, definitely thankful and appreciative that I've gotten to this particular point. So that's a long answer for my career, but that's ultimately wanted to share that to say that's how I've gotten here. But I'm appreciative of the long road.
Yes, you've made some stops. You have made some stops, but one thing that I can say about you, Coach Nayreau, is that every single stop that you have made such an impact when it came to the recruiting side. You build relationships extremely well. I was able to throw you in the fire when we were at CBDF Austin because you were a quick learner. And
Hmm.
again, yeah, I was had just had my first child, Aaron. But one thing, you were very passionate about learning, getting out there. You didn't mind getting out there on the road and building relationships with all those that are involved in the recruiting process. And as you know, for recruiting, it's not just the athlete, but it's the parents, it's the coaches, it's everybody around um,
Hmm.
dealing with that athlete. So I want to ask you, get your opinion about, because now there's so many changes with the recruiting process, and but I would love to hear from all the different levels you've been, all the different schools, your journey, and just with the landscape of recruiting right now. In your opinion, what has changed? What do you see now that has changed the most over the last few years?
I'm not sure if you've ever received this answer, but what has changed from my point of view over the course of my career has been opportunity for coaches, opportunity for teams, opportunity for exposure. As we've moved along, I would say early on in my career, where the relationship was definitely geared towards knowing high school coaches, sitting in high school gyms. Somewhere along the way, there was a shift that it transferred to the AAU coaches. And so, everybody trying to find a source of better recruitment shifted over. And, I think high school coaches were left behind at that particular point in time. But it's still one of those things for me when I think about the change throughout my career, the opportunity that's been there. Because before there wasn't video or highlights that are readily accessible on the internet from Twitter, Instagram, for the Facebook, the student athlete to be able to reach out, and it doesn't feel as though your skill level can be gate kept. Whether you're in Alaska or you're in Idaho or you're in Iowa or Florida, talent is talent, and now it's being able to get to the forefront. Now with opportunity, definitely, there are a lot of student athletes who do have access to film and highlights. And so coaches have to do their due diligence and filtering through that. So to me, on the ground level, it's the opportunity from the kids to the coaches that definitely has changed over time. Even myself, I've changed as a coach, as a recruiter. What it is I look at, where do I go to get my information? And being at the Division 1 level. Well, let me pull back. The three things that I hang my hat on would be my resources, my resourcefulness, and the relationships from those two. Your school can have resources, or your school may not have resources. But beyond that, what can you do as an assistant coach, as a head coach, in being resourceful? Because you may not have the budget to go to Louisville, to go to Florida, to go to California. And how do you make the adaptations and the adjustments needed and necessary in order for you to still be visible as a coach? And so the same thing that I ask of any coach on our side is the same thing I would tell, a student athlete or their parents on the opposite side. It's just like, in the midst of chaos, there is definitely opportunity. And so it seems chaotic at times, but I think those who are able to keep their eye on the ball are going to find opportunity along the way. And so from Stephen F. Austin to Southern Mississippi to my two junior college stops, it is being able to settle into my resources. What can I do resourcefully? And then the relationships that I do have along the way that has definitely helped in the ever changing landscape. It is, I tell other coaches, when was the last time you thought about a beeper or a house phone? Change is nature's delight. And, for parents, parents are different. For kids, kids are different. For the sport itself, it has changed in how it is played and how it's marketed. And,
Mhm.
you cannot begrudge the change that is in front of you. It is, can you adapt to the change? And, that's how we teach. I think all coaches teach offense, defense, and transition. There is never a stationary game. And so you're always moving and you're always adjusting to what it is that you're seeing, the information that you're perceiving and receiving. And then you make a decision and you move on to the next thing. And so, I don't begrudge the change. I settle into it and I look for the opportunity that it presents.
I love what you said. You said opportunity, but one of the things that hit me most was relationships. That I think sometimes we forget that relationships and building relationships is such an important part on both sides. On the side
Hmm.
as a coach,
Yeah.
as a college coach, building relationships with travel ball coaches and high school coaches, and then also the other side, those
Hmm.
coaches having a relationship with college coaches. And I think that's important as well. And then I also hear you saying that it doesn't matter where you are, film, as long as you have the assets available for coaches to see and it's organized in the right way, that that opens up opportunity for more athletes. Am I correct?
Indeed. Indeed.
Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Let's really
You
talk
know,
about some NAIA. When you're talking to families and you're talking to athletes, they always have the big picture of the Division 1, which is nothing wrong with that. But
hmm
there's so many more, as you say, opportunities out there for families, for athletes. And
yeah.
and you hear about Division 1, you hear Division 2, and you hear about junior college, but you don't hear a whole lot of people talking about NAIA, but NAIA is such a great option. So I would
hmm
love to hear you talk to us about, a family that is considering NAIA or maybe a family that's not, that they're looking, but they're not getting the responses that they want from a Division 1, Division 2. Talk to us about NAIA and the positives and how it's such a great option for our families.
Absolutely. I think the hidden level of collegiate athletics comes from NAIA athletics. Too many times, if you aren't exposed to information, it's hard for you to know. It's hard for you to build a house with tools you weren't given, you know. And so, without somebody within your high school or your AAU program recognizing that NAIA athletics is just as important, to the growth of the game. And so that has to do, it goes back again to the relationship aspect, where NAIA coach with their relationships to high school coaches, and then ever expanding relationships with AAU coaches, we can get on the ground level. Now, at this particular level, I would say, patience is a key factor, because I think the marketability of NCAA Division One has won over the hearts and minds of student athletes and parents
Hmm.
clear across the board, because it's what you see. And what we understand about attraction is what you see most is what you're going to be drawn to, right? But I was also told, you know, sometimes the thing that you're looking for, or the person you're looking for, is in the place or the thing that you won't look at. And so it's where I definitely feel that, should parents have more information, should student athletes have more information, AAU coaches and high school coaches have more information, they would then be able to give an honest evaluation and assessment of where their student athletes stand, and open the doors for those to see NAI athletics as a first option, as opposed to a second or third option.
Yeah,
But
because to
again,
be honest with you, I've heard you hear a lot of NAIAs are just as competitive or can
yes,
compete with lower Division Ones. They
yes,
can compete with Division Two.
yes.
So it's very competitive.
Yes, consistently, year to year basis, from a basketball standpoint, baseball standpoint, you have teams, men and women, that compete versus Division Two, Division One, and it isn't, a far gone idea or conclusion that, well, an AI is not going to be able to compete with a Division One or a Division Two, but people are readily surprised whenever they see the outcomes on a yearly basis.
Hmm.
Now, again, it is the difference between the exposure that takes place, because within your state, Texas, you have more people who can point to you, let's just say within the Dallas Fort Worth area. They could
Hmm.
point to the University of Texas at Arlington. They can point to Texas Christian University, North Texas, but not knowing, or some not understanding, that Texas Wesleyan, as a NAIA institution, is right there near Fort Worth, Nelson University, University of North Texas, Dallas. And so it goes back to the exposure, but the relationship, and then at the ground level, the student athletes and their parents being self-assessed and self-aware enough to know and understand where they are, and what it is that they want academically and athletically. Too many times we put the athlete before the student, instead of where it belongs, student before the athlete. And recognizing that your degree is just as important, no matter where you attain your degree from.
Absolutely. Talk to us about what is a NAIA funding package scholarship? What does it look like? I know it's different at every single university. I want families to understand that it's real money, right?
Yeah.
It's equivalency, very similar to Division Two. Um,
Yes.
so, can you talk to us what a funding package could look like for a family that's considering NAIA?
For a family that's considering the NAIA route, you have several different options. What isn't available Division One, because you hear a scholarship and it's a full scholarship. That's usually in the basketball realm, football realms, so forth and so on. At the Division II level, you have equivalency as well, and I think you are looking at 10 scholarships if we're talking women's basketball specifically. At the NAIA level, you're looking at 8 full grant equivalency limits where it's now you get to break it down depending on 25%, 33%, 50%, 67%, however you choose. And here I explain it to the parents that it's broken down into a pillar of tuition, fees, room, and then board. And
Mhm.
so but the benefit of what we can do here is I have some academically inclined student athletes who, if you come in with the 4.0 GPA, you're looking at a presidential scholarship, which could carry a huge load of the costs, and then pretty much finish off the balance from a athletic to academic standpoint.
So basically stacking scholarships.
It is a
Yes.
wonderful
Mhm.
thing. You can
It's a
have
process.
outside scholarships, church scholarships, whatever it is that we can garner for the student athlete, we'll put that
Mhm.
all together in a package. And then, so it still ends up being a full cost scholarship, but it is paired together from the athletic side, the academic side, the financial aid side.
Basically, every single student is a different it's different. You're
Mm,
looking at every student, seeing what they bring to the table. You're looking at what they
yes.
bring to you athletically. So you say you
Yeah.
have 8 full scholarships that you can break up into how many do you normally keep?
You'd want to most teams are going to try to reach 14, 15, or 16. And so at this particular level, you have to be judicious with the scholarship money that you do
Mhm.
have, who gets a certain allotment. And that number 8 is, again, limiting, but it doesn't limit you in scope when it comes to all the other avenues that you can reach and stack scholarships. And so you just have to be an accountant of talent, an accountant of the money, an accountant of the recruits that you are bringing in and how you are going to manage that budget. I think this has more than uh, um, help me adjust from the Division I level where you don't pay so much attention to the numbers scholarship wise. And so, I encourage anybody at the Division I, but those at the Division II level know and understand that to win at this level, to find talent, to develop that talent, and to do it on a resource limited budget. I think it stretches you as a coach, but it definitely makes you that much better as a recruiter.
Let's take a quick pause. If you are a parent or an athlete and you're realizing that, you know what, I really don't have a recruiting plan, I have something for you today. My NIL Sense recruiting system pairs with professional recruiting software and with 6 do it yourself modules. So you're not just handed a login, you're taught exactly what to do, step by step, and you can do it at your own pace. I've also put everything in my book, Future Finance Focus, plus its companion workbook, which is available on Amazon. Here's the best part, you get the system free for 7 days. Just click the link below so you can get started. So you have no excuse to not have a plan. Now back to our show. One of the things that we teach in our program is we teach our athletes how to build a resume,
Mhm,
really a funding resume, because just like you're telling us that, you're going to look at that athlete, you're going to, you're offering them a percentage based on their athletic side. But as you look at
mhm.
the total resume that that athlete can bring to the table, it allows you to help them to lower that cost and ultimately pay for school for them. Our parents, our parents and our athletes can assist with that by building that college resume, by doing the college planning and starting early. The earlier you start, the better that resume will look just like with a job, right?
Mhm.
Anything else you want to add about the current landscape of recruiting? I think it's very important for families to understand the different divisions. We know so much about Division One. And what about on the road? How often are you on the road? Do you more rely on information being sent to you in a digital form,
Yeah.
or are you able to really hit the road a whole lot? Because normally at NAIA, you don't have 4 or 5 coaches, you have 2 or 3, and a lot of might be grad assistants. Am I correct?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
For myself here, it is looking at our budget, what it is that we can afford, what it is that we can spend. My primary area is always going to be Oklahoma. So, I've changed my range of recruiting and getting out in quotes. Getting out for me means 2 to 3 hour drive within the state of Oklahoma. That's
Mhm.
primary, that's home. So that's the primary recruiting area. Secondary recruiting area is going to be Texas, Louisiana, Kansas, Arkansas, New Mexico, states that are around. But that right there, it has to be from a digital standpoint where there's someone in Texas, there's someone in Louisiana, there's someone in Arkansas, and we've communicated back and forth. And so once we've garnered interest on both sides, then we uh, we put in that effort. So again, being a bit more judicious with the time and the money that we do have. And then tertiary area is going to be anything outside of that or international. And so that's where your outside relationships come into play, that someone would direct a student athlete from California or from Florida or from New York and say, hey, here's an athlete being overlooked, think they would do great for you. And that's from those who have either come across me, gotten to know me, understand myself, and now in 2 years as a coach would say, hey, we think that they would thrive within your system. So primary, Oklahoma, secondary, states surrounding, tertiary, anything outside of. But then also knowing that I can hit the ground and then I can also use digital. So with the landscape, it back in the day, it was very important for us to be in the gym to be able to
Mhm.
see. That is
Mhm.
still very important. Recruiting is recruiting, relationship is relationship. It does not matter, it does not change. Now it's subjective for everybody because now how much time do you spend in a high school gym? How much time do you spend on the road? How much time do you spend at home developing your own team? There are constant pressures and stressors on every coach. And so you're going to have to look at the percentages of the time that you do have to, grow your net when it comes to recruiting, but also take care of home. And so what I try to do here is be visible enough on the ground, local high school, local tournaments, state tournament, just, and even if it does not produce the outcome that you want, you have to be a patient enough fisher to
Mhm.
continuously do the thing until some reward is reaped from it. So getting out in on the Oklahoma roads does not promise that I'll get every recruit, but staying at home will promise that I surely don't get much. So,
Yeah.
it's
Visibility counts on both
yes,
ends. Yeah.
absolutely.
So, Coach Nehru, we have one question that we ask
Okay,
every single guest.
okay.
And here's the question: families that want to master college recruiting and the recruiting process and college planning process in this new landscape, this ever changing with NIL, the transfer portal, all the changes. What is
Yes.
one thing you'll tell them to focus on first?
Oh, the thing that I would tell them to focus on first. I'll end it how I began. All right. I got into the business with a pocket full of hope. Everybody wakes up, mom, dad, son, daughter, student athlete. There is hope for the day. Okay. Beyond your hope, the investment. And so I would tell everybody to focus in on their investment. Now, the investment is always time sensitive, money sensitive, and the energy and effort, right? But where your investments lie. Now, having been privy to NIL since, what I would tell any student, any athlete, any parent, uh, having information is great, right? But information does not equal knowledge. And knowledge allows for you to make better decisions, directed decisions, clear communicated decisions that give you direction, that, of where you are going to place your effort and where you're going to place your resources, right?
Mm-hmm.
So most sources are giving you information. What I have seen behind the scenes as NIL sense continues to grow is the knowledge needed and necessary. Now, beyond the knowledge, the information is the the what. The knowledge is the how. And the thing that I would like to praise you on is the wisdom beyond all of it. Because it's one thing to have the information. It's another thing to know and have the knowledge. But the wisdom enough of the why you do certain things, why you build your resume, why you communicate in such a way to Division One, Division Two, Division
Mm-hmm.
Three, NAIA junior colleges to create an outline for yourself, right? Having a plan is better than not having a plan, but that plan will point you in the direction in which you are seeking, and you can lay out what is the best benefit for you as a student, for you as an athlete, your playing style, proximity to home, family, and friends. And, it is one thing to go out into the world with feelings, but it's another to be equipped with information, knowledge, and wisdom. And so, you being able to walk moms, dads, and student athletes through the process, because I once mentioned it's as an adult I can understand the stock market, but I still need somebody to walk me through it, right? I can understand my retirement, but I would still need somebody to walk me through it. There's so many things that we know of. The information is readily out there, right? But
Mm-hmm.
what, is restricting and what's limiting is the knowledge to know how to disseminate it, how to use it in making a decision that's best for, student athlete X or student athlete Y and their family. And so it goes beyond, just the information that most people are going to have. And so I champion this. I definitely believe in the product. I think that it's one of those where now, if you are knowledgeable enough, I think there are steps that allow you to navigate the recruiting aspect of this on your own. But the investment in the information, the investment in the knowledge, but what you have, having been a student athlete at a high level, having been a coach at a high level, having done it for your own family in navigating your son's recruitment. So, the experience leads to the overall information, knowledge, and wisdom that you have that you can now impart on others. And that's what I would give to as an advice to any mom, dad, to say, if you have the information, great, but what are you doing with the information? If you have the knowledge, great, and then are we making the wisest choice
Yes,
for
it's
us?
all about execution. That's one thing that we focus on because, like you said, there's knowledge all over the place. You can Google, you can go to AI, you can get on YouTube. You can see, you can
Yes.
find information, but it's all about executing it and having the right plan in place. Coach Nehru, thank you so much. But before we wrap up,
Yes.
I'm gonna give you a brag moment. I want everybody watching, everybody following this program, I want you to tell us how they can follow you, um, your social
Mm,
media handles, and then I want you to tell us about how good you're doing. Tell us, what you've done over there because you've done some major things and you being
ah,
really, really humble about it. But I want you to share with us about what you did this year. I talked about the impact, but you are really doing some great things over there. And so I want to give you a moment to brag about the impact that you're making over at the university.
humbly, I'll accept. It is Coach Jaye Nayreau. You can find me everywhere now. On X, it is Coach_Rue. Instagram, Coach_Rue. There's not much information there. I always tell my assistants I have so much more to do than to say, but you can also find USAO WBB on X and on Instagram. And so it's a slow moving process in how we put out videos and so forth and so on. But we've amassed a small following community wise and throughout the state. As far as like the program, been here for 2 seasons, and within 2 years, we were fortunate enough this past season to make it to the NAIA national tournament. It has been a great experience so far. I work hard, but I'm also very thankful and appreciative of the place and the space that I'm in and being.
Yes, I just love it. You have the support there,
Yeah,
and most of all, you do the work. You do
yeah.
the work, and you can see it because it's showing in your program. So go follow Coach Nehru on his social media handles. Coach, if a athlete sends you information via
Hmm.
social media, do you review it?
Absolutely. Now this is for myself something that I've done from day one and probably will be till day forever. Any information that comes across my desk, I do take the time to watch it, evaluate it, and then respond in kind. May not be always as timely as I'd want it to be, but for those that do come across my inbox, which is quite a lot, at this level, anybody that I believe emails me, I feel as though they know and understand it's an NAIA. And
Mhm,
so the old adage of, we're going to turn over every stone, and that's how we go about it. And so I can be honest in my assessment from local talent, out of state talent to international talent in responding. But I think just being able to assess, evaluate, and then respond in kind, I think that goes a long way. You're not going to get everybody that's talented to write you, but I think
mhm,
just in being able to communicate, I think it gives student athletes a sense of accomplishment to be able to communicate and receive some type of communication from a collegiate coach. I'm not sure, how much it does in terms of their success and failure in receiving a scholarship, but at every level, I've tried to communicate as much as possible to student athletes, to high school coaches, to AAU coaches, because everybody's doing their part, and it's only right that I do my part and respond in kind. So yes, absolutely, does not matter if it's 50 emails a day. I will respond in kind, or if there's a phone number, I will call just to say that I've seen it. And so I appreciate all emails. I encourage anybody who's out there, if you are considering NAIA basketball, or if you've not considered, to do your research. If we are in distance of you, absolutely email and you'll receive a response.
All right. Well, you guys heard it from Coach Nehru. This week, if your athlete has not seriously looked at NAIA schools, Coach Nehru just told you about the opportunity. He told you a little bit about what a funding package would look like and its true competition at the NAIA level. So if your family has not seriously looked, this is your time. Go add 5 schools to your list this week. So thank you, Coach Nehru. We so appreciate you taking a moment out of your busy schedule, especially during this recruiting time, this heavy recruiting time, to share so much information to us just about the current landscape, about NAIA, and a lot about what you're doing and the great things that you're doing at your current universities. That's it for today, guys. We'll see you guys on the next Master the Process. That's it for today's episode of Master the Process. If today helped you see recruiting differently, do me a favor, follow the show, share it with a parent who needs to hear this. Remember, master the process and you maximize your opportunity. I'm Coach Braxton, and I'll see you next time.